Anthrax, Wasp and Venom. The music's getting harder and faster every day. Part of this furious vanguard is a band from Ottawa called Exciter, who played the concert hall recently.
Couldn't get a Canadian record deal for our first album over the States, and you know, a company in California picked us up, and as a result it was on Import in Canada. Our music does, you know, it doesn't sound Canadian, if you know what I mean. It sounds more British. We pattern ourselves after British style heavy metal, so I guess, you know, kids pick it up, hey, it's an import. It sounds British. They must be from England. They're not from here, you know?
Now, you're described as having a massive cult following in Europe. Does that mean that you're selling hundreds of thousands of records there?
Well, not really hundreds of thousands. We're selling quite a bit of albums. It seems like the kids in Europe today seem to be picking up that, you know, they've had their fill of Priest and Sabbath and that, and they seem to be going to more towards the Venom and the, you know, Metallica and Exciter and Anvil and stuff like that. The younger metal, they seem to be really getting into that. So as a result, you know, we just fit right in with what they're into, you know, all of metal at wicked speeds, you know, as heavy as possible. So they just bang their head on the stage to it, and it's great.
It seems to me a lot of the lyrics in heavy metal these days has to do with the Dungeons and Dragons craze, a lot of medieval butchery and witch burning, the kind of Conan the Destroyer scene. How come?
A lot of it is sometimes you run out of concepts, you know, and you gotta write about heavy, you know, subjects and death and destruction. You can only write so many songs about war, and then you'll see a movie like Conan the Destroyer, and you get inspired, and you go and you write lyrics like, you know, he was slayed by the blade of the sword, and the metalers are in the front, and they're freaking out. They love lyrics like that, you know. It's better than saying I'm walking down the street smiling at people that I meet, you know.
Yeah.
It's heavy, and it's, you know, the medieval days were heavy, and it's, you know, it's, you know, certain death for most people. You know, you got to fight to stay alive, and that's what metal is all about. You know, it's a fight. Stand up and fight for metal. That's what it is. I
don't want to over-intellectualize or anything, but do you think that all this death and destruction fantasy has anything to do with the fact that we're sitting in the shadow of a nuclear war?
I think a lot of it does. Like the song "Violence and Force" from our latest album, title track, was you know, written about nuclear destruction, right? World War III, which was on a compilation album 2 years ago by the band, was written, you know, World War III, nuclear destruction. It is like a shadow, you know, on everyone, but it's also a heavy subject, you know, and kids can relate to that, you know. It's nuclear war, it's heavy. World War III, right on. That's a great concept, you know.
This is the concert hall, man. I said, do you feel like pounding some metal tonight? What's your rating? Violence and force. Listen, fear is up in the the fire burn the sky, but it was the rest of all preparing to fly. Come on! Violence and force, come on, Toronto! Violence and force! Violence and force!
Still ahead on the new music, Max Almy, Twisted Sister, and more.
Feel like kicking some ass tonight? Hey, what about you crazy people down here? I don't know, it looks like the people down here want to kick ass more than you people up there. Well, we'll just have to see. How about some Black Sabbath?
I'm speaking with Dan Beeler of the band Exciter. Dan, I think before we actually talk about what you're doing, what the band's up to, I think you should talk about the band a bit for people that aren't initiated to Exciter.
With the band, okay. We've been together 4 years now as a trio ever since we came out. And ever since it started, we've been doing demos and doing original material rather than doing the top 40 and hitting the bar scene. And we've been hitting record companies left and right, for the past 4 years. And we've been gigging around the Ottawa area, last year around the Toronto area, and a little bit of touring around. But basically, we haven't played too much in the past 4 years, like as far as going out on the road and, like I say, doing the bar circuit. But like I say, we've hit it more for like a record deal, and the release of our first album week, and it's doing very well. It's doing very well in Europe, and it's called Heavy Metal Maniac.
Okay, getting back to the history of the band a little more, I guess your choice of not doing mainstream cuts or top 40 kind of restricted the places you could play.
That's for sure. Yeah, that's why we gotta play in a place like this, where we can crank out the volume, put on a whole show, and
volume really important for what you're doing.
It's very important, definitely. A lot of people come out and they say, why do you have to be so loud? But you go to the Civic Center and you can, when it's nice and loud, you can sit and you can feel the power, and you can say, hey, that that band blows me away.
Literally.
It's energy, literally, yeah. And it's energy, and like tonight, we're gonna crank it out. We're just gonna, play nice and loud. Not loud so that you're walking out holding your head. You can't. It sounds like 10 Concorde jets, but nice and loud so the punch is there, and it's great for the metal. The metal music just keeps it flowing.
We're talking about metal. I don't particularly like to segregate different kinds of music in every different genre, but obviously you guys have hung on to this heavy metal thing, and you consider yourselves a heavy metal band. What would you define as a heavy metal band?
I would define a heavy metal band as you come out on stage, you play loud, and a big production, Marshall stacks, heavy on record, heavy pounding on the drums, really bottom-end bass and screaming vocals, and yet a lot of people is mindless, and the fact that there's no harmonies and stuff like that, but I don't know, heavy metal to me, and to the rest of the band, is like, you just come out on the stage, the guitar is nice and loud, nice and raunchy, like I say, the bottom end is there, the drums are pounding, the vocals are screaming, and it's energy, total energy.
It's really difficult to pin a band down, but I know you guys are, I guess, really define heavy metal, but just by your definition, I mean, Gang of Four is heavy metal, and by that definition, and they aren't really. What kind of bands are, besides yourselves, are heavy metal today? I mean, is Def Leppard heavy metal?
I wouldn't say Def Leppard is heavy metal.
But they were called a heavy metal band.
They were when they first started out.
I see.
But as they went on, they got. I would say they were like a power pop band, and I would say like power pop, like Def Leppard, like their latest album, is you play loud, you play heavy to a certain point, but more on the commercial side. We're not acid at all, but it's more heavier, and you're more apt to hear a Def Leppard on a Def Leppard song on the radio than you would hear an Exciter song.
Why is that, you think?
Heavy metal scares a lot of people,
Heavy metal, or
I would say
Black Sabbath gets played a bit, and
a little bit, but I would, not as much as Def Leppard or the Scorpions or something like that.
Again, they're heavy metal. I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's. I guess it's really hard to define heavy metal, but I don't know. It's total energy and total. it's loud and big production. And
Is there a time limit on this kind of music for you? I mean, in today's musical climate, obviously synthesizer bands, fashion, all that is very, very important. I mean, it's what's happening basically in terms of radio. How do you guys fit into that? I mean, does that bother you at all?
No,
Did you think about that when you decided to be a heavy metal band?
no, it just doesn't bother me at all. Like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, you know, when we were pounding out the metal tunes in different places around the city, people were saying, you guys are heavy metal. I mean, new wave was just coming in. It was just really big. You know, you guys got to play new wave. You know, you guys got to play punk. Exactly. You know, where's punk today? I know there's a lot of punk still around, but I don't know. I think metal has been there since the late '60s. Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath was out there, and Judas Priest, all these bands, they were into metal, and it was like, how could I say? It was like underground, you know, and it really built itself up in the late '60s, early '70s, and then it kind of went under. But I think in the past year or so, metal has gotten bigger than it's ever been, and I think it's on a definite upswing.
Okay, you're the drummer in Exciter. You're also the vocalist. Who do you pattern yourself after, a drummer? Anybody in particular?
I'm very much British influenced. Every drummer I can relate to, ever since I've started, is a British drummer. You know, like in the lines of Les Binks, who played on some of Judas Priest's earlier albums, Bill Ward, British with Black Sabbath, and a lot of the new bands that are coming out now. I wouldn't say new, but I'd say new to North America, like Saxon and Iron Maiden and all that. I follow more in their lines than any American or Canadian drummer. I've always liked the pounded out metal double bass, go crazy, you know?
I see. Okay, now getting back to your album a bit, it's called Heavy Metal Maniac, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of a concept album. You split one side's heavy, one side's metal. How do you define one versus the other?
Oh, that's got nothing to do. I wouldn't say with the songs. It's just kind of a gimmick, you know. These days, it's really hard to think of something different than other bands. We figured, you know, Queen did side white and side black, and you know, we figured, why not just put side heavy and side metal? To us, it means the same thing. You know, one side's heavy and one side's metal. You know.
Do you think it's a gimmick that's going to sell you guys, or it's just conquering people like you're going to do basically tonight?
It's hard to say. Hopefully they'll conquer people. Hopefully the metal crowd will pick it up and go, hey, that's neat. I never thought of that, you know.
Are you proud of your first album?
I'm very proud of the first album. It started out as a demo, actually, and we didn't, you know, we never thought of pressing it, but we did like 9 tracks, and we decided, hey, you know, it sounds all right for a demo. And then Mike Varney down in California, who owns a record company,
and writes a column for a guitar player.
Yeah, for sure. He said, you know, why don't you guys press that into an album? So, you know, we signed the label, and I'm very proud of it. When I put it on the stereo, and I put on Black Sabbath and Judas Priest, I would say it's got the heaviness, and it's got the, you know, the crunch. It's all there.
You're obviously in it for the business end of it too, right?
Oh, definitely.
The music business. Is there something you don't like about the music business?
Oh, there's lots I don't like about the music business.
That's one thing that really gets on your case about music.
It's so unpredictable, you know. One day things could be going great. The next day it could stab you right in the back, you know. There's always somebody out to rip you off all the time. I mean, you can't even trust, you know, your best buddy in the music business. I mean, he's always out to make a buck. He's always out to stab you in the back. But you just gotta, you know, play it smart. And over the years, we're not a great band business-wise, but I think over the years we've learned a lot in the music business. I think we're definitely in it for the business as well as getting out on stage and playing. We've had to do everything for ourselves in the past, you know, and that's just the way it is.
It wasn't easy coming up, I guess, huh?
No, it wasn't. It's a hard road, and, you know, I think it's just going to start getting harder, but, you know, that's what we're in it for.